Cassandra is still speaking.
Right.
She is seeing already what's going to be happening indoors when she's still outdoors, because that's her power of vision.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, this house stinks of blood-dripping slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
It is like a breath from a grave. Oh, it's just
Yep.
really horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And since she's already been talking about this wind that is blowing east,
Right.
you can't help but connect the dots here that the whole staging of this horrific death,
Right.
which we can only imagine because it's going to happen indoors, not outdoors.
Right. Exactly.
This whole staging is a kind of culminating moment of horror that has been building up
Right.
in this amazing drama. I'm fascinated with the way she says, I pray to the sun as I face its light for the last time.
Right.
So I imagine if the wind is blowing from the west to the east,
Right.
that the wind is behind her
Uh-huh.
and propelling her towards her own slaughter.
Slaughter, yes.
Just as the wind that finally allowed the ships of the Achaeans to sail to Troy, where the Achaeans would be doing their slaughtering,
Right.
was blowing from the west to the east.
Right.
And that same wind, of course, was what caused Iphigeneia's perverse slaughter by Agamemnon.
Right. You also have the language of the compensation that we talked about it in the speech of Clytemnestra, right?
Yes, it says, if we can go at it, just before 1325,
Yep.
I pray to the sun as I face its light for the last time, that the enemies may pay a bloody penalty to compensate for my death as well.
Yep.
So the whole idea is there's this chain of compensation,
Exactly.
and this chain will just keep on going
And that's the problem. Yes.
all the way, relentlessly,
Yes.
through the third of the three dramas.
Right.
And
Right.
then and only then will we find any hope for some way to break through this chain of evil.
This is also an aspect of the mēnis that we were talking about, that it just keeps on going. It's
mēnis?
once you've triggered it, the hardest thing is to stop it. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So got to repeat that. So mēnis, that cosmic sanction.
Yep.
Once you've triggered it,
It just keeps on going.
Keeps on going.
Keeps on rolling, yeah.
Ah.
So they all get caught in this meat grinder of compensation.
yes, yes, and it's relentless.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm fascinated with how she says, how Cassandra says, one can still compare it all to a shadow.
Right.
It's almost as if there are certain ways of representing things, and there's, among other things, shadow theater,
Right.
where you don't see the full picture, you
Right.
just see silhouettes.
Right.
Is the way,
Something that still survives in Greece, right?
it's something that still survives in modern Greek performance culture.
Yep.
But then Aeschylus's mind is so ready to extend from one thing to another thing.
Yep.
And I'm not quite sure how to handle this, but when she says, when things go badly, the dabbing of a wet sponge blots out the drawing, I think that goes back to making silhouettes.
Mm-hmm.
And even that visual impression, which
Uh-huh.
is not the whole picture,
Right.
and it's just shadow theater,
Right.
it becomes even less.
Right.
And
You just
that
make it
idea
all
of a
disappear.
wet
Yep.
sponge just erasing everything
Yep.
it is pitiable. And that's what she says. This is a cause for crying and singing while you're crying and crying while you're singing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the emotion that how many of us are there? 30,000 Athenians,
Exactly.
let's say,
In the
who
theater.
show up in Athenian State Theater.
Right.
We all are drawn into this, this larger-than-life emotional crucible.
All 30,000 of us outside on a hillside in the daylight.
In the daylight, yes.
And it still
Looking,
works.
and when we're on top of the Acropolis today, when we look down at the theater of Dionysus, I can never get over
Uh-huh.
the thrill of actually witnessing
Something there.
a place where these words were spoken
Yep, yep, it's amazing.
in
to see.
458 BCE.
Yep, yep. Just once, though, they were supposed.
Just once.
That was enough.
Okay, so there may have been reruns a century later,
Exactly.
but certainly
That was-
just once.
That was the intention, anyway.
For as far as the community was
Right.
concerned.
Which gives you a sense of how intense the moment could have been.
This is intensity.
Yep, yep.